أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا حبيب إله العالمين بالقاسم مصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Hello everyone, welcome to the fourth week of Tadabbur on the Quran. We are at the second level. Today we're going to have the introduction part and I'm going to talk a little about different translations and different tafseers and different tadabburs. If you go to buy a translation of Quran or a tafsir of Quran, you will find out that there are many books, different types of tafsir and different translation. I'm going to talk about this. Why do we have different translations? Why do we have different tafsirs? And how about different methods about tadabbur on the Quran and this stuff? And then we will have chapter 74, Surah Al-Muddathir, but not the whole chapter. I'm going to talk only about verses 1 to 30. This is a long chapter and we cannot cover the whole chapter in one lecture. So before starting our lecture, I'm going to talk a little about these days that we are in. Ramadan is coming. There are only a few days to Ramadan. And as we are trying to be ready for Ramadan, shopping some specific food, preparing some specific food and this stuff, um, I'm going to suggest you to be prepared also spiritually and physically, do some optional fasting before Ramadan, specifically the last 3 days of Shaban, which is very recommended. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Imams, they all suggested us to do some optional fasting during Shaban and also Rajab to be prepared for Ramadan physically and spiritually. It's difficult to start Ramadan suddenly and do fasting for 30 days. It's better to do some fasting before that to be prepared physically and also spiritually to have a better connection with Ramadan and to be actually more prepared for it. That's all I wanted to mention. So let's get to start the introduction part. As I mentioned, there are different translations of Quran in the markets. There are only one Quran, I mean the Arabic book. There is only one of it. There is no second edition. There is no other types of it. There is only one Arabic book, and which is important that we have to know that there is only one book. And if there is different types of translation, it doesn't mean that those translations are different because there are different Quran. No, there is only one Arabic book. Quran and these kind of translations are different for some reasons. Two main reasons I want to talk about it now. One reason is step-by-step progress in translation. Translation is very similar to other scientific studies, and it progressed step by step. Like several hundred years ago, translation techniques were different from now. And during the time, those scientists who were trying to translate Quran into another language, like into Persian, into English, into French, and these languages, they actually find new methods and they try to make a better translation by time, step by step. Like several hundred years ago, when they started to translate Quran from Arabic to Persian, they were trying to do not add or do not remove any word from that translation, and they were just translating each word one by one. For example, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. Under each word, the equivalent Persian word without adding or removing anything. So it wasn't actually like translating a whole sentence. It was just word by word. And by the time they find out that it's difficult for people to understand these words and it's better to make it a sentence and it's not actually bad if we add a word like is or are to it. For example, in Arabic, there is no is or are. So they were not able to use this in their translation, and it make it difficult for people to understand that sentence without is, without are, without many words. It's technically because of the different grammar in different languages. So they add is or are during the time and they try to make a sentence equivalent to that sentence. Then after a while, they said, okay, how about translating verses together to make it easier for people who are trying to read Quran. So they try to translate one verse or one sentence based on the other sentence before that or after that. And then after that, they try to translate some verses together as a group, as like a paragraph, which we talk about it in Tadabbur. Then after that, when in this time we are having this Tadabbur class, we are trying to translate a chapter based on the whole chapter, based on all of those verses which is in a chapter. So, for as a conclusion for this part, there are different translations because translation is very similar to scientific studies and it progressed during the time step by step, and during the time they provided more accurate translation, and actually they use different techniques to translate Quran. The other reason is those people who were trying to translate Quran, they may had different understanding and different definition for each of those words. So the words and verses in Quran are very deep, and it's not easy to provide only one specific translation for each of those words. Some of them, one of those words has like five, six, even 10, even more than 10 equivalent in another language. So it's not easy to find an accurate translation for each of those words. And as that scientists are trying to translate Quran, they may have different definition. They may choose one of those words to translate Quran, and the other one may choose another word. So as they have different options, they may choose different words to translate it. So this is another reason that we have different types of translations. So how about tafsir? As I mentioned before, there are mainly, I can say that there are two types of tafsirs. One of them are technically the extended translations of verses, which means those scientists were trying to mm, translate one verse in an extended way, like provide more explanation to make it easy to understand. So one type of tafsir is the extended translation. The other type of tafsirs are based on narrations and quotes from Imam, from Prophet, and they were trying to explain the concept, specifically deeper layers of those verses based on narrations and quotes based on the historical documents that they had from 1400 years ago. Okay, so there are two types of tafsirs, and each of them and in each of these category of tafsir, there are a variety of books again. For example, the first type, which is the extended translation, there are many of those tafsirs. Why they are different? Again, very similar to the translation because they progressed step by step. Also, they may have different understanding and different definition for each of those words. So that's why they are different. How about the other type of tafsirs? If they are based on narrations and quotes, why they are different? They should be the same because they are based on the narration and quotes from the Imam and Prophet. No, they are different because there are different narrations and different quotes. And there are many historical documents that they mentioned, like, for example, for one verse of Quran, there might be 10 different narrations from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his Ahlul Bayt and Imams. They provided different translations. Are they really different? No, of course. There shouldn't be any difference between the words that the Prophet said and Imam said. They are different because there are many fake narrations, many fake quotes in those on those historical documents. So based on the method that those scientists used to find out the accurate narrations and accurate codes, they provided different tafseers. Some of them may say these historical documents are trustable and I'm going to use it to provide my tafsir. And the other one may say, no, this is not trustable because that person who mentioned these narrations, he is not trustable. He was a liar, he was a cheater, and this stuff. So those different methods and those different approaches that those scientists used to provide their tafsirs based on narration ended up like this, and they provided different types of tafsirs, and that's why we have those different books. The other thing about tadabbur, why do we have different tadabbur books? As I checked those schools, there are some schools that they have lectures, and the title of their lecture is Tadabbur on the Quran. As I check their methods and their books, I find out that they are mainly translations or extended translation, which is tafsir. So I can say that they were somehow not accurate on providing the definition of tadabbur, and they were somehow confused between tadabbur and tafsir, and their classes are mainly tafsir or the extended translation. Even sometimes they go to narrations and quotes, which is the other type of tafsir. So they were not able actually to categorize them and to find out the difference between them and then do the real tadabbur. So many of those schools that I checked, that is main difference with our classes. They are not say they are not very different from tafsirs or translations. I choose this method of tadabbur on the Quran, which is mainly provided by Hujjatul Islam wal Muslimin, Professor Ali Sabuhi. And I choose this method because I believe that the way that he distinguished between tafsir and tadabbur and translation is very accurate, very scientific, and he made it based on Quran. I mean, he provided the definition of tadabbur based on Quran, which we had it in our last classes. And I told you about the definition of tadabbur. He provided this definition based on Quran, and the main goal of tadabbur in his approach is providing the translation of each chapter, considering the main goal of that chapter, not translating each verses without considering the other verses before that or after that. He was trying to translate all of those verses, considering their connection and considering the whole context of that chapter, also considering the consistency of that translation with the other chapters of Quran. And he made this kind of a translation based on logic, based on the Arabic literature, and based on Quran mainly. And he didn't go through the narrations or quotes or historical documents. That's why I can trust this approach more, because it's mainly based on Quran. The translation of those verses and those chapters are based on one concept, that is the consistency with the whole Quran. And also it's based on logic. It's based on Arabic literature and Arabic grammar. All the tools that he used to do this translation is logic, Arabic grammar, Arabic literature, and the consistency with the other verses and other chapters in Quran. That's why his method is very specific, and I can trust this kind of translation, and that's why I choose this method to for our lecture. So it was all I wanted to mention about this section. And if you have any question, you can ask your question, then we can go to the second part.